Welcome. In this lecture, we're going to look at Chapter 2. It's going to be Rhythm and Meter. One of the main aspects of rhythm is rhythm makes music move forward. It propels music forward. And it's the most fundamental aspect of music, okay? All music has rhythm, whether we can feel the pulse or whether we can't feel the pulse. Okay, and things that are associated with rhythm are going to be, notes that have length, the duration of the notes, beats, and so forth. Now, the beat of a piece of music is going to be the basic unit of rhythm. Okay, sometimes beats get interchanged with the term pulse. So if we have a regular pulse through a piece of music, it's going to give us that forward momentum. Okay. Now, with every single beat, if I have a specific pattern, you can divide this beat into equal segments. Okay, you can have strong beats and then you can have weak beats. So you can have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And so the strong beats will get an accented beat, and it will help provide a rhythmic pulse or to a piece of music. Now, when we talk about rhythm, we're talking about the element of music that helps propel music forward. Okay, rhythm is probably the most fundamental element of music. All music has rhythm, whether we can actually feel the pulse or not. And when we notate rhythm, we're notating the notes and the length or the duration of rhythm. Okay. Now, one of the basic elements of rhythm is going to be the beat or pulse. And the beat is the basic unit of rhythm. Okay. So if we have a regular beat throughout a piece of music, we would divide it up into equal segments. And those equal segments we'll talk about later on, they're called time signatures. And with that, we'll have stronger beats that have an accent, and then we'll have weaker beats. And these accented beats help provide a rhythmic structure and a rhythmic pulse to music. So, continuing talking about rhythm, we have the idea of meter. And meter is basically the organization of these beats. We can organize these beats. Maybe we'll do in groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 4, groups of 6. Could be whatever. But meter helps us organize this flow of rhythm. Now, when we talk about musical notation and how we notate this on a manuscript paper, we'll go on a 5-line staff and we'll have measures that will write music out, and each of these measures is going to contain a specific number of beats. Okay. In addition, we'll have bar lines on the 5-line staff where we write out music, and these vertical lines in notation, they designate what a measure is. Now, continuing talking about meter, and we have the idea of metrical patterns. Well, in music, we're going to see patterns throughout music. And in rhythm, we definitely have a lot of repeated or reoccurring patterns of beats. Okay, and these patterns are going to be dictated by with the stronger beats versus the weaker beats. Okay, now the first beat of a pattern, or the first accented beat of each pattern, is called a downbeat. Okay, we would also call this the first beat of every measure is called the downbeat. Okay, in addition, it coincides with the conductor's downward stroke. If a conductor is going to go to conduct, he would start and then go and start like that. And the idea of having his hand go down with his downward stroke, he's delineating this downbeat or the start of a musical piece. Now, in music, we have a few basic patterns that come out a lot in classical music or in Western music. And these basic patterns are going to be duple meter, triple meter, and then quadruple meter. Continuing talking about metrical patterns, we have a few terms that we want to be familiar with. So, first off, the idea of simple meter. And simple meter is the idea that we can divide a beat into 2 sections or 2 equal parts. If you have in 2/4, if you have a quarter note, you can divide that quarter note into 2 eighth notes. So you'd have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, or you could have, so that if it was duple meter, you'd have a strong beat and a weak beat. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. If it was triple meter, you'd have 3 beats per measure, and you could do 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 3. This meter is really associated with dances like waltzes and minuets and so forth. And then there's a quadruple meter where you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are your basic simple meters: duple, triple, and then quadruple meter. Continuing talking about metrical patterns, we're going to talk about the idea of compound meters. And compound meters are different than simple meters because with compound meters, you can divide the beats up into 3. So instead of doing 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and, you're going to have 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and it's going to have more of a flowing kind of feel to it. If we looked at time signatures that are compound meters, we would look at time signatures like 6/8 and 12/8. Another term that's on the slide that we'll look at is the idea of an upbeat. And that's where the music begins with a weak beat, anticipating a strong beat. Okay, and we'll see that through some pieces throughout the course. So continuing talking about metrical patterns. So we have 4 different examples here. We have an example in duple meter, we have an example in triple meter, quadruple meter, and then sextuple meter. The first is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And that's going to be an example in duple meter. So you'd have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, where every other beat is getting an accent. Triple meter, well, we have every third beat getting an accent. So the happy birthday, that's in 3/4 or triple meter. So you'd have the happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. So you can hear that accent over that strong beat on birthday. Quadruple meter, their example is Yankee Doodle. And we'd have basically Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony. And you can hear the strong downbeat on Yankee and then went. And then a sextuple meter, we have Greensleeves. It's kind of like a 6/8 where the accent's going to be on the first and maybe for the first pulse of every 6 beats. And then maybe the fourth, there'll be a strong beat on the beat 4 as well. So you'd have, alas, my love, you do me wrong to cast me all discourteously. Now, another term that we're going to want to know about is the term called syncopation. And syncopation is the accents on offbeats. And we're going to you hear a lot of syncopation in blues, rock and roll, and jazz, definitely. So where, typically in music, the strong beats are what's getting accented. Okay, but when we accent the offbeats, it really kind of enhances the music and kind of has a sense of urgency or drive. And we see this a lot in African American dance rhythms. We see it in jazz. The example I have here is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Let's listen to that. Another term we want to be aware of is non-metric. And this is no sense of beat or meter. And there's a lot of music out there, especially with non-Western cultures, that where the music doesn't really have a definitive pulse, or you don't really get a strong sense of the beats. This is also prevalent in a lot of Gregorian chant, or chant from the early Christian church. I have an example here. Let's listen. So this concludes our discussion on rhythm. So please continue listening to the discussions on harmony, timbre, and the rest of the discussions on the element of music.